in Finland and Norway and Sweden. I'm the head of legal and also CSR manager, and heard about the pest sustainability through our CEO, Mika Sutinen.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Lovina Art. I'm working for the news that of the subsidiary of the German Association. We are organizing an interview, and I'm the director of exhibitions in that association. I've heard about the Pest Sustainability Council coalition in Warsaw at the event of Korea, and we had a meeting just last week in Orlando.
All right, welcome. Is anyone else on the line, or have we gone through introductions this morning? Okay, it sounds like we may have gotten everyone. And the session is being recorded, so I'll be sure to send it out to everyone who has registered for the webinar today. And the goal is to really introduce you to the Pet Sustainability Coalition, to go over some of the content that Spencer and Corinne shared at Global Pets Forum, and then to open up for general questions and answers so that I can be sure to answer any of the questions that you may have about the Sustainability Coalition or our expansion. And we're hoping to wrap it up in about 30 minutes today, and then I will send along the slides so that you can review them with your team, and the recording so that you can reference it or send it to other team members as well. And I think for now, just because if you have some background noise in your room, if you could go ahead and mute yourself and then unmute yourself when you'd like to speak. We have a small enough group that I think it will be okay if everyone goes ahead and asks live questions as we're going through the presentation, so no need to hold it till the end. But you can also enter a question into the chat box if you would like to ask a question that way. All right, so I will go ahead and jump in. I mentioned that I am the executive director of the Pet Sustainability Coalition here in Boulder, Colorado. I'm also a co-founder, so much of the work that the Sustainability Coalition has done, I have been here kind of from the beginning, but I want to give you the story of how PSC began and some of the successes that we've had to date. So many of these slides are things that you may have seen at the Global Pets Forum, but I have added some additional content as well. So I always start by talking about who our founding members are. In 2013, Chris Bentley, who was with, a long time ago, Aspen Pet before it sold to PetMate, and has been in the industry for 25 years, and then helped to co-found I and Love and You, which is a food company based here in Boulder, Colorado, that was partnered with Only Natural Pet. He had a strong passion around sustainability and had been living in Aspen, Colorado, which is really kind of a birthing place of sustainability at large. And he had always had a dream to bring sustainability to this industry. And so just out of his personal passion, he had been speaking with a lot of leaders within different companies for years, asking them, you know, what are you doing around sustainability? What are you going to do next? What are your ideas? And what he found is that there was a strong desire from many companies to start making an impact and to reduce their impact as well. But many of them had piecemealed programs. So sometimes companies were doing solar energy in one place, or they had a philanthropic giving program that they were working on. But there was no kind of uniting force that was helping companies to strategically look at sustainability as a business strategy and to really measure and improve their impact over time. So when he became a part of I and Love and You, he decided, you know, why don't I lead and show companies how this can be done through the company that I'm working with? And so he looked for consultants around the United States and a few internationally as well, for companies that could really start to build a suite of tools that he could integrate into his company in order to drive environmental and social impact in a sustainable way so that it would not kind of ebb and flow. He had noticed in his own team that his employees were really excited about it, but whether they were very busy and they sometimes weren't able to actually implement on the ideas that they had. So he knew there was a better way to do it. So he reached out to all of these companies, and I happened to be working with the nonprofit consulting company that he chose, which is called Natural Capitalism Solutions, who is still a sister company, a sister organization with Pet Sustainability Coalition today. So I was a part of their team and started to build the suite of tools for him. And as we were meeting, I realized that his passion was so much bigger than leading with just one company. His vision was about bringing the industry together around sustainability and providing tools and education and resources and support across the board to all different companies, whether they were his peers or his competitors. And so he and I sat together and we talked about this vision and we looked around, is this concept something that has been successful? Has it been proofed? Is there a way that we could do this that we think would work? And so he and I, my background is in nonprofit in the first place. So I had about 5 years of experience working in the nonprofit sector. And I also had a master's degree from Harvard in environmental management and sustainability. And my own personal vision was to find a way to bring the business world and sustainability together. And so he took his passion around the pet industry and my passion around sustainability and driving impact through businesses. And we formed the concept of the Pet Sustainability Coalition. We then presented that idea to about 25 companies in 2013 at Global Pet Expo. And the 8 companies that you see here are those founding members who from the beginning said, we love this concept of having a place where there's tools and resources for companies to come and get what they need. We like the concept of having a collaborative platform where companies can work together around issues that are too big for them to solve. And we want to do it in a collaborative fashion. We want to be, the visionaries and drive our passion to make this nonprofit successful. So the companies you see here, Cardinal Pet Care, I and Love and You, Kong, Petco, Worldwise, Westpaw Design, Planet Dog, and Only Natural Pet, wrote a check for $10,000 in 2013, and that was our founding money. So that's where we started, and we grew very quickly. We now work with about 60 companies in the US, but we have grown, at one point we had 150 companies. And again, we looked at what are those organizations that are doing this in other industries and how can we model and learn from what they've done. And so we have tried to be a very nimble and accelerated process here at the Sustainability Coalition by learning from other organizations. So we're modeled very closely after the Outdoor Industry Association, that's also based here in Boulder, Colorado. And they started working 10 years ago by bringing together leaders in their industry to start looking at what are those places we can all come together around sustainability? How can we, share the cost and the energy of building tools and resources that we can all use? And they've been very successful. So Nike and Patagonia and Timberland and REI, and they've all been coming together in the same way. And so they were a part of our board as we launched in the first couple of years. And I mentioned, we had 150 companies at one point. And that's because we modeled ourselves after them, and they have a zero cost membership. And so any company who was interested in engaging with us was able to use our resources and get involved in the coalition. And it was a really important part of our founding because no one knew who we were. We had no way to show or prove that we knew what we were talking about or that we could be successful. So for the first couple of years, it was just an open membership model. But then as we started to work really closely with our members and we started to develop programs, we realized that there was only a small portion of our members who were really taking action. And that's part of our core values as an organization. And so we changed our model a little bit. And now instead of kind of trying to work with every single company that's out there, what we do is we really focus on those companies who are authentically interested in pursuing and improving on their sustainability. So that's why now we work with about 60 companies. We just added about 5 in the last 30 days at Global Pet Expo and a little bit before that. But I'll get into that a little bit as well. So you can see our members here, founding members, gold members, silver members, bronze, and supporting members. And at different levels, all of these companies get to decide the types of benefits that they most need for their team. And then they choose the membership level that has those benefits. So Our focus, and one of the reasons we've been so successful, is because we really focus on accelerating pet businesses through environmental and social impact strategies. So this is a little bit different than saying, we're just focusing on the environment or our social impact, but we are really wanting to do it in a way that drives business sustainability, because we truly believe that's where a sustainable program comes from. If we're just doing things that make us feel good or have a good impact on the environment or society, sometimes you will lose momentum over time, and ultimately your sustainability program will not thrive inside a corporate setting. And so we really try to merge those two things together. So our primary focuses are, again, accelerating that impact, and we do that through education, tools, and resources. We're a non-for-profit organization. So that means, we're not looking at profit. We're looking at our primary mission being impact driven and really supporting our businesses. We're 100% member funded. So we don't have a big chunk of funding that comes from the government or from private grants or foundations. We're really primarily funded by our member companies who are actively engaging with us. And we're financially self-sustaining. So we're 4 years into it, and we are excited that we were just able to expand, and we now have an additional full-time staff person here at the coalition. And that really helps us, again, to really work in that hands-on way with our member companies to drive that impact. I talked a little bit about that business focus that we have, and this being one of my personal passions coming out of the program at Harvard, which is really about looking at what is that optimum sustainability program that will really be sustained and drive impact. And so we're always working with our member companies to help them around differentiating their brand and having increased sales, having a greater market value, having higher employee retention and productivity, and attracting top talent, reducing supply chain risk through transparency and knowing where and how our products are made, and increasing innovation. We find when our member companies start to look at their businesses a little bit differently, they really find that as they start to change the types of questions they're asking, they have different answers to those questions. And so they're able to innovate completely different products and different styles of business that are very successful for them. So I wanted to explain, what does a member company at the coalition do? And I think this is really important because not every company is the same, and there's not one solution that works for them. And so we've had to be very kind of creative as an organization to work individually with each company to really build them a roadmap that can be successful. And this is one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about this work and what fuels me, which is that I get to work, with 50 different companies. I get to learn about their culture and about their team and their leadership and what they expect from their sustainability program, and then build the infrastructure to help them actually deliver on those values. So this is the process that our members undergo. The first step that they take is to measure their impact. And we use the Be Quick Impact Assessment, which is an assessment that is completely available around the world. It's actually used more outside of the US than in the US. But what it does is it helps to baseline where each member's performance is. And it gives us some transparency to know, where is your current performance and where do we think we can help you improve in a way, again, that comes back to that business value. It's free, it's confidential, and it's really that starting point for us. So that Be Quick Impact Assessment is a partnership program with B Corp, which I know Spencer talked a little bit about because he's a certified B Corporation, but it's an international consumer-facing label, whereas PSC is only B2B. So we're not a certifying body, and we don't communicate directly with the consumer. So what we do is we really help companies position themselves to be able to communicate with the consumer or with retailers or with their internal team or investors. And we work in that B2B fashion. So one of the strengths of working with B Corp, and they have a European arm as well, is that over 50,000 companies have answered these same questions. And so it gives us this enormous data set in order to have this comparative conversation and open and transparent conversation with each of our member companies. We have a shortened version of the full impact assessment. So if you want to become B Corp certified, it's a very lengthy process that's intentionally lengthy so that it can be very holistic, and it's like the highest standard of sustainability. But we have kind of selected a key set of questions from each section inside of the impact assessment. And that's why it's called the Be Quick. So it only takes 1 hour. And then we sit down and we review it with each of our member companies and have an open conversation around where they are and what inspires them and what barriers they may face inside of their company when they try to drive change. And then we help them take action. So we say, okay, here's a list of maybe that you want to focus on your low-hanging fruit, or maybe you want to focus on those items that will drive some savings so that you can reinvest that later into a project that might have an initial upfront cost. But what we do is we really create that customized roadmap for each member company. And we have partners that we do that with. So again, we're a small team. So we look at what are those really incredible tools that may exist outside of our industry that we can bring in and make super relevant for our industry. So we have partners with the Sustainable Apparel Coalition that uses a set of tools called the HIG Index. And that's for, the hard goods section. So collars, leashes, and toys, people that are using textiles and materials. So really leveraging those tools that are already out there. We work with Natural Capitalism Solutions, which is, again, our sister company, totally nonprofit. And, they are driving kind of strategic processes inside companies to make sure that your leadership is well aligned and that you're setting long-term goals. So we continue to work with their team. We work with Green Blue, which is an international packaging organization that really focuses on helping companies identify those opportunities related to their packaging to reduce environmental impact. So that's just some examples of the partners that we have at the table. And so we help them take action, and we also help them measure that action. So how do we show year after year that our member companies are improving? And what's the business value? A lot of companies, when they take action, they're so excited about the process that they forget, hey, one of the reasons that we're doing this is also to show business value. And if I want year after year to make sure that my company has the budget and that we're continually improving, constantly showing that business value is something that we really help our companies do as well. So that when they come back the next year, they're ready to take action and they have strong support internally from their entire team. And then finally, we share success. And if you were at Global Pet Expo, you probably got to see some of these pieces. But our members who go through this process, who really take the time to measure their impact and show improvement, have an opportunity to participate in our One Paw, One Planet program that is really kind of building this community of companies who are talking about sustainability, who are measuring sustainability, and who are taking action. And the companies who get this decal, it goes on the carpet at the trade shows at Global Pet Expo and Super Zoo. And we then send that out to all of our retail contacts who are looking for companies who are measuring what matters and who are driving impact. And so that's a communication mechanism to really encourage our community to start talking about sustainability, to encourage retailers to start asking questions around where and how things are made, and how businesses are acting, and what kind of responsibility they're taking for their business actions. And so that One Paw, One Planet has been around for a couple of years, and we've got about 35 companies participating in that. So I realize that's a lot to take in, but it'll give you kind of a basic overview of what our members do, and part of the benefits of our tools and resources. And I'll kind of jump into the toolkit a little bit and our partners, and the value that we're providing to companies in this journey of sustainability. So I want to pause there just for a moment and allow any questions that you may have. So you'll have to unmute yourself if you are muted, and then we'll move on a little bit further.
Yeah, Nils here. I have a question.
Sure.
We have a sustainability program today. We are part of UN Global Compact. We are part of BSCI for social sustainability. We have this, consultants has made a roadmap already for kind of sustainability areas where we work actively. And how does kind of PSC play into that, or is PSC above all that, or is it, kind of? Do you understand my question?
I do. So I think what you're saying is you already have an infrastructure as a company, and you already have goals set, and you're working to implement those goals. And so, what is our role inside of a company that's not starting from the beginning? Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's actually great. Many of our members are at all different places in sustainability. So some companies are just at the place where they need an initial roadmap and to measure. Other companies actively have a program. So, I think Spencer can speak to this as well at Westpaw Design, because, they're already B Corp certified and they have an existing program and their employees are very engaged. And so what the benefits that we provide there are really that community. So how are we sharing, what's working, what's not working, what's the landscape in our industry? So we'll talk about the events that we have where you get to learn from inspiring stories outside of the industry, and also learning from what's working with our peer companies. And so there's that network. I think that's very beneficial around innovation and joint learning. Also, our toolkit. So, let's say you have a goal around your social impact or your supply chain. Our toolkit has resources in there that can really speed up that process, so you're not reinventing the wheel. So let's say you need a code of conduct, or you want to know what a best practice code of conduct looks like, then you can always jump into our toolkit and access those resources as a way to really leverage those tools and resources that are already out and available. So there's that piece. There's continual webinars. So we're bringing in new tools and resources that may become available. So for example, if you don't have a dashboard potentially that is showing you on a monthly basis what your energy, water, and waste footprint might be, then maybe there's a solution where you'll have more data at your fingertips so that you can make decisions more easily with your team. Or maybe, there are barriers that you face. So almost every company that we work with says, we have this program and here's some of the challenges that we're facing and how do we overcome those challenges? And so we're a resource to really look at when those barriers make themselves seen with inside your organization. How do you approach them? How can you address them? And sometimes having a third party can be very helpful as well. So for example, we do satisfaction surveys with some of our companies if they're wondering, are my employees happy and satisfied? Or what is their interest around sustainability and how do I leverage that in the right way? So again, going back to those tools and resources, the community, and then the communications programs as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Caitlin, just because you mentioned me, Nils, this is Spencer. It's nice to meet you on the phone here on this conference, and appreciate your participation. As you might be aware, Mika and I've had these conversations for several years, maybe 6 years now since we started, and I think what you've done inside your organization is really to create an engaged workforce. I think that's why, as a best places to work organization, you've really set a standard and you've really inspired people in your industry of retailing, in business in Finland and Sweden, Scandinavia in general, and also in the pet industry. And as you've done that on engagement, you've done that certainly with your environmental sustainability programs. What I think Caitlin is saying, and I've seen it happen with members of the coalition, is being able to share those inspirational stories within our industry to help the supply chain, to help other related businesses move their businesses forward, is a very powerful force. And that is one thing as a leader in our industry that I think you and the organization can provide through the Sustainability Coalition. I also think, Nils, there's an opportunity to inspire inside the organization. As your organization has grown so much over the last many years now, the programs that you have inside are working very well, I think. But maybe there's an opportunity to work with the only sustainability group that is pet focused, and that's the coalition, to help further initiatives inside your organization that may connect with your supply chain in innovative ways, and then being able to tell that story innovatively. So I think it's both the opportunity to scale and unify a lot of the work that you're doing already and bring that inside the organization and inside the pet channel, and also to share and to inspire and to tell that story within the industry to maintain and grow your leadership position. Those are things for us on the inside with our employees that they really appreciate, is the fact that this fits with our values, this fits with our culture, and it's a great way to give and receive in our industry. And the coalition is the only one that can do that. As Caitlin mentioned, we have the B Corp community, which is even larger, of course, but it's not in our industry. And so we find that we use both. Just maybe as Mr. Yamiri might find, there's organizations, internal and external to your organization, that are serving a purpose, but also maybe needing something in the pet channel. And that's where we hope your leadership and opportunity to inspire really helps to move this initiative forward.
Yeah, that sounds really great, and that is kind of what we are looking for, actually. I mean, although we have these kind of sustainability programs in place, I often find that we're kind of fighting our own battles all the time, and especially for, I mean, personally, I'm the only CSR person on paper, although I have the organization behind me. But having the Pet Sustainability Coalition, I think that would be very helpful for our work.
That's great to hear, Nils. That's wonderful.
All right, any other questions before we move forward a little bit?
I do have a question this is Rowena speaking, with regard to B-Lab, which seems to be, or be certified, which seems to be the basis of of all the activities you are doing. There is also the GRI standard existing, the Global Reporting Initiative, which is operating since 1990 in over 90 countries as well. And so the question is, for me, have you taken a look at B-Lab and the GRI, and to which extent are they similar, to which extent are they different?
Sure. And again, Spencer, please jump in if you have done comparative research. Certainly, I'm aware of GRI, particularly through my work at Harvard and learning about those existing structures that can help companies around their impact. So I am familiar with GRI as a standard. And when we looked at the different options related to measuring and improving impact, we felt that B Corp provided a lot of value in terms of the international recognition, but also the community focus. So, and I am not entirely familiar as to how holistic the GRI standard goes. And so I think, and I think the next thing that we'll talk about in this presentation is, okay, how is this expansion to Europe going to work? And are there existing structures like GRI that we may want to look at incorporating? And I think that's why, having people from Europe who have a good understanding of the relevancy to European companies is incredibly important. So we're definitely open to expanding the tools and resources that we're using. So for example, if a member came to us and said, hey, we want to become GRI certified according to this standard, then we would put together a roadmap that would help them reach that goal.
I think that's a great point, and I think the GRI sets a very high standard of performance, and it's very much geared around reporting. So sharing out, and I think Caitlin, you've hit on something that for us, we hope to inspire and ignite without people feeling that they have to be a multinational large corporation to do a GRI. We want more of that grassroots feeling of an organization that could be as small as 50, maybe as small as 20, but it could be as large as 5,000 that can do this. And I think that the inspiration and that action we have felt more aligned to the global movement behind the Certified B Corp assessment, which also is standards-based, as you know, Rowena. But it is a little bit more about that community and engagement and beyond some of the environmental sustainability decisions, but very much rooted in the employee and workplace culture and community and engagement as well. So there's many standards, as we all know, and there's no one that is perfect. But I think as we look forward and working with the committee in Europe, there's an opportunity to say, well, is there a better program? We want to be certainly open to that input and to decide which one would work. Our tools at the coalition currently are really leveraging the B impact assessment because it's approachable, it's highly vetted, and it was able to be simply customized to fit our industry, which is also, I think, something that the coalition brings that that others are not focused on the pet channel specifically. But I think in answer to your question, certainly GRI standards are fantastic and certainly could be a great way to help a member of PSC who wants to do the GRI standards. The organizational experience with Caitlin and others can help pet companies move that way if they so desire.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Yeah, and we have been approached. I mean, I think you know that, we work with some very large organizations like Petco and PetSmart, who reporting, is an important initiative for them. And so helping them review CDP or GRI or lots of different options around reporting and what infrastructure to move forward with and how to do that is something that we are familiar with. All right. So I wanted to jump in a little bit into our specific toolkit and some of the events that we have and how we're inspiring action, and then how we support companies with implementation. And then we're going to take a look at, okay, what is this expansion to Europe? This is the roadmap that we've been following as an organization here in the US, and these are the programs and the partners that we've brought to the table. And what we want to move forward with is modeling that into Europe. And so what needs to take place in order to provide the same type of value to companies based in Europe? So I want to touch on some specifics around our toolkit so that you have a sense of what are the tools that currently exist. And, eventually we need to have a conversation around, do we need, how do we tweak these tools to make them relevant? Do we need to expand these tools differently? But some of the ones I'm touching on here, I believe are already applicable. So I just want to kind of fuel some ideas around this. So our toolkit is a web-based toolkit that is accessible to anyone. And there are groups of different types of tools that you can see here. So there's an education center where you go to get basic information. There's an implementation center when you want to take action on an idea. And then there's a resource center that has reports and videos to learn from as well. So a couple of the pieces I touch on here are the sustainability lens, and this is really a strategy tool. So I and Love and You and Ainsworth Pet Nutrition are two companies that have undergone this process with us. There are others as well. But what it does is, frequently when you have diversity of ideas, so maybe one person has a CEO that's very focused on financial savings, and maybe another person has someone in HR who is very focused on employee engagement. And so what it helps do is to bring those visions together into kind of one understanding of what their sustainability program needs to deliver on in order to be sustainable within their company. And then you create kind of a filter so that your team knows how to select the right strategies to drive that value. So that's one example. That's a sustainability lens, and it's a facilitated exercise. So frequently we travel to the company and walk them through a day-long activity where at the end we come out with this clear vision and understanding of what sustainability needs to drive moving forward. The next thing that I have put in here is our employee survey. And there's kind of two different ways to think about employee engagement and how we drive value with our companies. So for some, it's that they already know that their employees are really passionate around sustainability, but sustainability is always that buzzword. And so it's defining that, right? So what is their knowledge? What are the barriers that they have? Maybe there's a specific type of program that would be more effective for them, or they're really focused on social impact and what that means to the brand, or they're not. Maybe they're very focused on environmental impact. And so what we do is help them identify what the knowledge and barriers are, and how do you leverage that to be successful on your sustainability goals. On the other side, there's also kind of this basic satisfaction of what makes an employee really engaged to come to work, to be a brand ambassador of their company and keep them there, and to really encourage them to grow their skills inside of your company. And that leads to productivity and retention and attraction of top talent. And that's not always just focus on sustainability. Sustainability is one way to engage them. And so we also help companies evaluate, where is their basic employee satisfaction and how can they encourage that and grow it. And then finally, sorry, I have to move over my presentation here. And then finally, the webinar piece. So we bring together leaders from within the industry to talk about their program. What's working? What's not working? And we always try to couple it with, so here's a tool that may be successful for you, and here's a story of someone using a tool or a resource or a strategy. So that it's not just us saying, philosophically, we would recommend going this way. It's really learning what is it like to actually implement sustainability and to do it well, or to learn from each other's challenges as well. So that's just a kind of example of pieces that are in our toolkit currently. And the other piece that we focus on is events and inspiration. So how do we bring in incredible, innovative solutions that are being driven outside of our industry? And how do we help demonstrate leadership going on inside of our industry? So this is a perfect example. This is our first premier event. It's called Impact Unleashed, May 4th and 5th in Denver. You're all welcome to attend if you would like. And there are about 10 premier speakers coming from outside the industry. This is an example. So Kim Kupinis, who's the regional director of B Corp. Eco Products, you probably heard of them. They do compostable and recyclable single-use products. And World Wildlife Fund, who's really looking at the impact that businesses are having, including the pet industry, on wildlife habitats around the world and how we innovate solutions to that. So that's just an example of who's coming from outside the industry. We also have PetSmart coming to talk about their social sustainability program and labor and welfare issues and what they're doing around that. We have 3 or 4 companies coming to talk about protein sourcing and innovative solutions that are happening in other industries that are coming into our industry, and how to drive those solutions. We have companies coming to talk about employee engagement and the types of things they've seen when they, for example, have increased to living wage instead of minimum wage, and what the impact that has had on their business. So there's some incredible speakers. There's a great lineup. You can check out that lineup at impactunleashed.petsustainability.org. And we also have 2 semi-annual events that take place at the trade shows. So we just had one at Global Pet Expo. There are about 80 people there. And we are hosted by one of our member companies right there in the trade show floor. And we bring people together with a speaker to talk about a sustainability issue that's prevalent in the industry and a company that's taking action. So, for example, at Super Zoo, we are bringing together Clean Canteen, which is a brand focused on ocean health. And we're also bringing in a conversation around packaging and what's going on in our industry around packaging and ocean health issues, and how we can generate kind of positive impact around that issue. So that's how we've been effective, because we realize that all of our members are coming to one place at a trade show event, and it's a great opportunity to bring them all together a couple of times a year, and then really also driving that content through an event like this, where we have multiple days to really provide more value. So we went over education through the toolkit, inspiration through our events, and the final piece that we really focus on is action. And so this is where the rubber meets the road. So when you have an action or a roadmap, what are you doing to actually implement it? And our memberships, 20% of membership fees become available in an earmarked fund that a company uses to take action. So a lot of our companies say, man, we're really swamped. We don't have anyone in a sustainability or CSR role. How can we add another thing or drive further impact or get the maximum amount of value out of something that we're already working on? And so we have implementation hours that our members use, and we work directly with them to help them implement. And so here's one example with Camp Bow Wow, who is the largest daycare facility in the US. And we helped them do a basic energy audit waste across their portfolio. And we were able to identify $200,000 worth of savings with a 3-year simple payback period through a 17% reduction in energy use. So that's, sustainability at its most basic around energy efficiency. And we find that there's a lot of local rebates that are available. And so we help companies identify, what is the local system that can support the decisions that they're making? What's a timeline for implementation over the next 3 years? What's the expected ROI? And then we engage a local partner to really help them do that audit and understand the results. So that's just one example. And I've already mentioned the partners that we have at the table. So we do all different types of projects with our members, and then we release case studies. So we just released a brand new case study from Worldwise, who launched an reinvigorated and restructured internal sustainability team. And so you can find that on our toolkit as well, and that's widely available to the public. And then we have a whole showcase of case studies that we release on an annual basis. So last year we had more action taken by our members than ever before. And so we're looking forward to launching 4 or 5 new case studies before the year is out this year. And we have 5 existing already in our toolkit. So those are the 3 ways that we focus specifically with our member companies. But I also talked about collaboration and it being kind of a key driver inside of our organization. And Spencer talked about this as well in his presentation, but when you start to really look at those big sustainability issues, whether it's water scarcity or food or, what's the pet industry impact on the agricultural sector and what do we do about that? You realize that as one company, you cannot drive the solution to that, and that having maximum representation and leverage over the supply chain is where you really start to drive that impact. And so we really also focus on being that place where companies can come together. How do we provide a backbone for coordinating organizations and a common agenda and shared measurement and data and mutually reinforcing activities? And what we find is that, I mentioned we're modeled after the Outdoor Industry Association, but many, many industries have realized that collaboration is really key to affecting long-term change. And if you look at the left here, there's reasons for this. So you see, as you have multiple companies, so not just one company participating, but when multiple companies come together, impact increases because there's more action taking place. Innovation increases because my single idea may not be, may not grow into fruition on its own. But if there's 3 people sitting next to me who hear that idea and it bounces, or creates a new idea inside of their head, then you just have a maximum increase in innovation from multiple minds working together. You see an increase in participation because if I find that all of my peers and competitors are suddenly implementing sustainability and participating in the coalition, then they also want to be at the table. And so you see kind of that rapid rise of industry participation as multiple companies come together around sustainability. You see a general increase in performance because the bar is raised. If everyone is now operating at a higher level, then it just continues to increase and the performance of the industry increases as well. And then you get to start to have policy influence. So we're not here as an organization yet, and I can talk a little bit about this. But when you start to have a common vision and you have multiple companies coming together and showing this leadership and having long-term commitments and goals, that's when you start to influence the policy and the infrastructure of your industry as well. And the last piece I want to touch on here is our kind of 4 common values, our core values as an organization. And that's around transparency, which is why we have that impact assessment and all of our members are required to take it as part of their membership. Collaboration, because we realize we need multiple people at the table. And, me specifically and the coalition, I am an outside influence. I am not a company. I am, I have become a leader in this industry, but I'm not the CEO of a company who has shown success. And so, we really bring leaders to the table to collaborate and to drive this coalition over time. Authenticity, this is really about, being clear around driving impact. So not saying, hey, I just want to have your logo so I can stick it on my packaging or so that I can look like a sustainable company, but saying I'm a company who is authentically interested in measuring and improving my footprint. And finally, being action-oriented. So I mentioned that we're really focused on driving action inside of our companies, and that's why we have set up our membership benefits to make sure that we can support that process. So we've talked about our roadmap for members, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, our roadmap as an organization. And this is kind of, we have an advisory board, and some of them are founding members, and some of them have learned about our coalition since then and have gotten really engaged in what we do. And we meet, there's a group of 8 of us now, and we meet every other month. And then we have one kind of 2-day long intensive strategy planning session a year here in Boulder, Colorado. And what we do is we look at ourselves as an organization, and we set our strategic vision for the year. And then I work to implement that. And it's a group of leaders. I mentioned some are founding members, some are not. And these, this is a shared vision. And so it's a volunteer role. It's in addition to everything that they have running their own company. So it's a big ask. And it's all self-funded. So, as an organization, because we're 100% member funded, we don't have coalition funds that we're able to fly our board around to different meetings or different events. That's all something that their company and they personally support themselves in order to be a part of driving this mission forward. So as an organization, we have looked at our own roadmap. So how do we expand our impact? How do we really drive sustainability on a global scale to this industry? We've had some success. We have really driven awareness. 75% of our industry say that sustainability is an increasing expectation. And so, the natural sector has grown tremendously in the pet industry. It's covered in every trade magazine. And so awareness is building dramatically in the industry around sustainability. We have companies who now have better knowledge of what their impacts are by using this quick impact assessment. So we have common terminology. We have companies taking internal action and using our toolkit and having hands-on project support. And we're also a key stakeholder in some collaborative groups, both in Europe and here in the US, around these collaborative issues like protein sourcing and what the future of the industry looks like. But we still have room to grow. So we haven't started influencing policy, and we certainly aren't yet talking about net positive, which is really the next movement of sustainability. So not just, hey, how can we be less bad, but how do we actually start to be a net positive impact? So this is our roadmap, and we're here to talk about what the roadmap includes for Europe as well. When we look at where's the concentration of action inside of the pet industry, the US is number 1, we look at Europe as number 2, and Asia as number 3. So if we want to, as an organization, have the maximum impact on the global pet industry, we know that we have to start engaging these other markets as well. And so that has been really the inspiration, as well as feeling a strong desire from companies, including everyone who's on the line today, and Pets International and Corinne and Gerard coming to us and really wanting to drive these types of tools and resources to the European market. And so those things kind of coming together is why we have decided as an organization to consider expansion beyond just the US. And how do we look at Europe and Asia as well, starting with Europe. So that's kind of where the announcement of PSC International came from. And I want to talk a little bit about the timeline and kind of the next steps in this process of expansion. So we recognize here in the US that a huge part of the reason of why we have been successful, why we've been financially sustainable, why our programs have been successful, why developing roadmaps specifically that our companies asked for has been successful, is because we are incredibly tuned into the needs of our industry. So we're led by the industry for the industry, and that really has driven our success. And so we know that the vision and the energy and the enthusiasm that will make PSC Europe successful is having this being led by European leaders who understand what European companies need, who have the inspiration to carry it forward, because it's the vision of many and not just the vision of one, is really what's going to be successful. So we're coming together and providing this opportunity for European companies to say, I know this is something that will be successful in Europe and that these companies will benefit from. And now how do we do it? How do we create that strategy that will be successful? So what tools are needed? What's the value? You know, are all of the membership benefits that have been beneficial for our market, are those beneficial to the European market? Are there stakeholders that we need to have at the table? Does GRI need to be integrated differently? You know, does B Corp Europe need to be integrated? Are there already bodies that are working in this industry in Europe that should also be at the table, so that, again, we're weaving that collaborative fabric moving forward instead of trying to create or, you know, create a wheel or, you know, create new tools and resources. You know, what is that infrastructure that already exists that we can leverage? And then launching formally. So our hope is that we could launch PSC Europe that would be open for all companies to join at different member levels in 2018. Where is that? What does it look like? You know, what do the membership benefits and levels look like? All of those things are things that we want to develop in collaboration with you and with everyone on the line today in order to be successful with this launch. And then maybe in the future, we look at Asia Pacific and South America as two growing markets. But we think that if we can show and really demonstrate expansion with piloting in Europe, that would be the first step towards success. So what does it actually mean? What will this group actually do? So when we launched in the US, we essentially opened founding membership. There was only a $10,000 level because we really needed that initial seed money to be successful as an organization. So many things needed to take place. We needed to build tools. We needed to work with our trade associations and get them on board. We needed to go out and talk to companies about what sustainability means. We needed to create that impact assessment. So there's a lot of pieces that needed to come together for us to be successful. And the same is true for Europe, but not to the same extent. So, you know, I feel very fortunate that PSC already has so many tools and resources that will provide value right out of the gate. But there is still much work that needs to be done. So we want full supply chain representation so that all perspectives are at the table. We want to make sure that the tools and resources apply to the international market. We need to know who needs to be at the table. Who are our stakeholders? How do we invite them in the right way to be engaged in PSC and to share our mission and our vision? What's the structure? What does PSC Europe look like? How does it operate? What does staff look like? And then how do we actually launch this and get companies engaged and involved, hopefully in 2018, moving forward? So that's the task that we have ahead of us, and it's incredibly exciting. It's collaborative. It's an exciting expansion for us, and our board is incredibly both strategically thoughtful about next steps that we need to take to be effective and to be sustainable, and also very excited about expanding our impact and engaging with new energy and enthusiasm into a new market. And so I don't want to get too much further. Other than to also mention that we already have 4 great people who are committed to this, as well as Gerard as well. So Gerard and Corinne will be the chair of this kind of strategic group that sets this expansion up for success. Spencer Williams at Westpaw Design, who is a volunteer board member here at PSC in the US, and CEO of Westpaw Design, myself, and then Ted Mishakoff, who I believe is also on the line, who is at Healthy Pet, also a European partnered company. And so we are all here to really help you learn from what PSC has had and what successes we've had in the US, so that we can be most successful in expansion to Europe and really providing value that can reinvigorate many of the sustainability programs that are already existing, and also inspire companies to get engaged and see this as a business driver that can add substantial value moving forward. So I'm going to pause there and again open this up for questions. If you have, what is the committee going to do? What is the foundation that you're moving forward with? Anything about the international expansion, and then we'll talk specifically about immediate next steps and a timeline. Any questions?
Yeah, Niels here again.
Yeah.
I think you might have mentioned this before, but how large are you thinking that the committee should be, or how many kind of participants should be in the committee?
Sure. And I'd be happy to pass any questions along as well to Corinne and Spencer, so please feel free at any point to jump in. When we started PSC in the US, we had 8 founding companies, and that was part of being financially sustainable over time. And we started with an advisory board of 5 companies. And so it was 5 companies who were very committed to sustainability, and also very committed to being collaborative, because it requires that you sit across the table sometimes from your peers and competitors, and so being able to wear that hat. But having 5 different perspectives was very helpful for us in the beginning. And at this point, we have 8. So I think anywhere between maybe 5 and 6 or 7 on the committee, and then up to around 8 founding companies in order to provide that additional support as well.
Niels, maybe could also to inform you what we are doing on the European side. So in cooperation with Kathleen and Spencer, we have made a long list for the European market. Although we are now today with a small group, there are more companies who have expressed that they are really convinced and serious consider to join PSC. Some of them have made commitment to be here at the webinar, but I think they have some obstacles internally which held them back to be and joining this webinar. But hopefully we can pull together instead of what Kathleen is saying, a group of at least 5 members who will start the European PSC.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions about what this group will be doing over the next 9 to 12 months, or the task ahead?
I mean, well, from my point of view, it would be kind of good to hear the expected workload. And of course, that's a huge question and maybe hard to answer, but it would be good to know how much resources if we join the committee, have to bring from my company in order to kind of make this fly.
Sure. So I think we can think about that in 2 ways. So one is the financial resources that will be needed, and then the other is the kind of passion and time and personnel commitment. And on the personnel commitment, we want to have the first kickoff meeting, I think we've mentioned this before, at Zoomark in May, on May 10th. And so that will be not just the beginning of, hey, here's the first time we're getting together, what will need to be done, but we would like to take great advantage of having everyone in the room at the same time to really work through that initial strategy. So we plan on coming very prepared with some outcomes related to that meeting. And that will be kind of the kickoff. So we wouldn't expect for the committee to have a lot of commitment between now and May, but really kicking off in May. And then having a meeting every other month for the rest of the year, unless we determine that we need additional meetings in order to make sure that we're prepared to have our formal launch. So I think starting at that May date, when we have a clear structure for all of the pieces that we want to move forward with. And I think, we can also think about it as, does this group want to have a slow launch where, when we get to May of next year, we maybe have 3 premier tools that we want to make are very effective and can be implemented immediately by companies, or is it 1 tool, or is it 7 tools, or is it a webinar series? So I think this group can really decide how big we want to launch with, and that will also determine what commitment is needed, how much we need to get done between now and the formal launch. In terms of financially, and I put together a bit of a budget here just so we can have an open conversation around it.
Caitlin,
Yes.
just a moment.
Yes.
You said two monthly meetings. Those would be online, I suppose.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah, because in time spending, that would be one of the questions, of course. I think we would have one or two maybe in the year somewhere with an event. That would be the best way to go. But the rest of the meetings would be online.
Yes, Gerard, thank you. I did not finish my thought around meeting times. So we would hope to meet in person when possible. So if the committee will be primarily at Super Zoo, then making time for us all to meet together there. And then potentially again, before the launch, when we decide when our schedules overlap, that we'll all be, or many of us will be in the same place, then to try to meet in person. And I did not actually mean 2 meetings a month. I meant either 1 meeting a month remotely or 1 meeting every other month remotely through a webinar, much like we're doing today.
How much do you want the PSC Europe to work together with the US groups? Is there, do you aim at a close interaction? Does it depend on how the committee will develop, or do you have already a plan, a vision, or an idea on that? Or do you just need to see how discussions go?
So I think the question is, how do I see the PSC Europe members interacting with PSC US, or were you asking specifically about the board?
Actually, for the first year, the board, because if this is the founding year, or this is the year how you want to establish PSC Europe, then I think it's between the board members, and then afterwards it would be also among the members.
Sure. So currently, the way that we have with these 3 board members, that primarily the interaction would be between Ted, myself, and Spencer through the meetings that we have on PSC International, so that we can represent much of the success that we've had here. And so I imagine that being the primary interaction. But then moving forward, we are absolutely open to some integration if we feel like that would be most successful for the mission of both our work here in Europe and or our work in the US and with Europe. So we're open, but we think for the first year that having our 3 representatives on the committee will be the primary interaction.
You said something about the meeting frequency, but you didn't say anything about the meeting duration. Like a meeting can be 1 hour, 3 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours.
One 10-hour meeting. No. So when we first meet in May, I'm assuming that because it'll be the first time we're coming together and we'll have a lot to cover, that may be a little bit longer of a meeting. So maybe somewhere around 2 hours, or potentially even more than that. Maybe we'll do a half-day session. We haven't actually had time to work out all of the details of that. Unless Corrine and Spencer, you guys touched on the length of that meeting last week at all?
No, we didn't, but I think we will have a working session there. So you will need some little bit more time than just 2 hours.
So count on a half day.
I think it would be half a day.
Yeah.
Because the group meets for the first time, and if we prepare some working sessions, then we can have a more in-depth direction for the rest of the year.
I agree. I think that morning meeting will be really important to have that whole morning section available.
Okay.
We should get that on everybody's calendar so that when we come, and we will be able to deliver an agenda to all the committee members in advance of that meeting, so that everybody understands what we're trying to accomplish in, as Gerhard said, the working meeting, and really get us off on the right foot.
And then moving forward, I expect changing to something like a 2-hour meeting for the meeting every other month.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
And one of the things that we do here is we have subcommittees that sometimes if there's a specific task that we're working on, then we continue to meet by email or intermittently, as needed in order to work on a specific objective.
Great.
Rowena, does that answer your question?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. So I did want to touch also a little bit on the budget. Again, we are entirely transparent as a nonprofit, and so I put together a good understanding of what we can envision the budget to be as a group in order to be successful. And I wanted to walk through, and obviously this is not set in stone. I just wanted to provide some understanding of, as companies are making this investment and as we make this expansion, what can we expect to be in the budget so that we can be effective. So if we look at 2017 to 2018, looking at having staff leadership to help with running committee meetings and making sure that everyone is informed and has agendas ahead of time, and also attending meetings in Europe as well. And then again at Super Zoo and every time that we meet, we can expect a range in there between 22 and 29. Then looking at the toolkit update and expansion, and this has already begun because we continually look as an organization at updating that toolkit and expanding the tools and resources, because companies implement them and we learn something new every time that we implement with a company. And so we're constantly and continually improving that toolkit. And so I have begun to look a little bit at the update and expansion. And so we can expect a budget, depending again, if we decide we're just going to launch with, the quick impact assessment and maybe a couple of accompanying tools, or if we're going to go bigger than that, between 18 and 27. And similarly with the launch event, so not knowing, how big that event will be or where it will be at, budgeting somewhere between 4 and 7. So that puts us in a total budget of between 44 and 63. I guess I should have put euro in there, not dollar signs. Apologies. And so if you look at the structure that we have built for companies to be involved in this, we have 2 levels that a company can engage. At the platinum or the founding level member, that is at 10,000 euro. And then there's also a gold level member that's also available at 5,000 euro. So when we think about the budget and how many companies we would like to be at the table, I think it's just important to make sure that we are covering our expected budget and also having some remainder so that as we go into year 2, we are not scrambling to make sure that we have the resources needed to be effective and that we're really able to move as slowly or as quickly as we would like. So then moving to 2008 and 2019, some US staff and leadership to continue to learn from the success that we've had here and apply the tools and resources in Europe. But then it depends on what this team decides. So if you decide that you would like maybe a part-time person who is specifically working with European companies, we may want to have some budget for that. If we have a semi-annual event like we have here at trade shows, then there may need to be a budget for that. So we see a little bit of an increase in year 2 as we really start to implement with companies. So I will include this as well, and please feel free to ask any questions related to where the funding will go and why the revenue is necessary in order for us to be successful.
I would like to add one thing, and maybe it's in the toolkit update. Your website is also bringing a lot of news. And so it would be in a newsletter or something combined. I think that would be wise here. I'm not sure if you already have planned in. The cost wouldn't be that high. It would be more personal cost, hours instead of really expensive, but it would be wise to have it in there.
All right. So I think when we meet in May, we can add a little bit more detail to each of these pieces. And then, this group will also decide where to allocate funding. So if we, look at what our budget is, we can say, we want to maximize our investment in one section and maybe less in another section, depending on what you think will drive the most value. Any other questions about the budget or the cost associated with founding membership?
Maybe actually our strategy is to have the founding members. Kathleen, I understood that it is actually a $10,000 fee. If a company is stating that is a little bit too high, and for instance they would like to go for the golden member, Can they be part of the founding committee as well? How flexible are we in that?
Yeah, so there are 2 levels, and I apologize, I should have put in a slide that had more of the structure around it, so that I was talking to some numbers that you could see. And I can email this out afterwards as well. So the founding membership is €10,000, and you can choose to be a part of the committee if you would like to invest yourself personally or your company in helping to lead the strategy. At the €5,000 level, you are a gold member, and you can still engage in the committee if you like. But there's a little bit of difference in the benefits that you receive as a member. So it is not the same package of benefits that we're able to provide as a coalition. And it is not the same as the founding membership, which is something that is integrated into kind of our story as an organization. So you probably noticed as I gave the history of who we are, our founding members are a big part of that story. And so at the €10,000 level, you become a founding member and a part of that long-lasting story of PSCE and the expansion forever moving forward. And so that's something that you cannot lose as a founding member. Whereas a gold member will have an opportunity every year to decide what level membership they want to be at, and they will be represented in the way that we speak about the coalition and the expansion according to that membership level, if that makes sense. So yes, Corinne, even at the €5,000 level, if there is interest to be a part of the strategic committee, then that opportunity is available.
Okay, but I think it's good for all to know for all of us, because hopefully everybody here is speaking around about it with other companies in the industry, so that everybody knows that preferable is 10,000, but there are also options for 5,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and I think Caitlin underscored, the most important thing is that the founders help the organization be financially sustainable from the start. And I think the amount of generous funding that we can get from those founders, as we found the European side, will help to determine how much flexibility there can be. That would be a really important decision point, so that we don't start this and then find that it can't be financially sustainable. We can hear birds from Europe. It's very nice.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Night feeders, apparently.
It's good weather. Okay, next steps.
Yes, so this is the final piece of the webinar today, and it's really, okay, what do we do next? So hopefully you have gotten a lot of information and been able to ask questions so that you understand the expansion and the opportunity for your company to lead the effort to expand these tools and resources and to really take sustainability to the next level. The next steps are that in March, so currently now, you need to decide if you're ready to join PSC. So are you going to become an annual founder? Are you going to be a gold European member? And then once you make your decision around how you would like to join, you then also need to decide, do you want to be a part of the committee? So do you want to invest your personal time or someone from inside your company to be meeting on a regular basis in order to influence the strategy and the structure of PSC Europe moving forward? And so we also need to know that soon so that we know in May what the group will be. And we can start to plan to be effective during that half-day planning session. And we know who's at the table and what resources we have so that we can begin to move forward. And then finally, we will have our first meeting on May 10th for the half-day morning session before Zoomark. So if you are familiar or you know how you would like to move forward, you can email me. You can also email Corinne. If you have additional questions, you can reach out to Ted or Spencer, myself, or Corinne or Gerard, because we've been meeting for several months now to put this together so that we can be successful. And we all have a lot of information that we can share with you. You can reach out to me immediately by email, which I see is not here. but it is cbolton@petsustainability.org, and I will be reaching out to you anyways with these slides, and so you can email me back if you have any additional questions as well. So does everyone understand the decision to be made and what the next steps are?
One question. On this slide, it's for the first time that you say it's an annual founder's fee of 10,000 euros. So it's not, that sounds like you pay that each and every year. So once you have committed to be a founder, you're committed to pay that 10,000 euros every year. Is that correct?
So in the US, it is an annual membership fee, and it comes with annual benefits every year. So every year we're making progress and we are providing value to each of our members, including our founding members, at the 10,000 fee. It has, for the last 4 years, all of our founding members have continued to engage and to provide that funding every year, and it has been more than highly valuable for them. If PSC Europe decides that a different type of structure will be successful for them, then I think that is, we are happy to review that as well. We just included the structure that we have and that has worked for us here in the US.
Because I was just wondering, because normally if you say you need that money to kick off, that would be then a one-off, and later on you decide what other kind of money it is. And if you give the money as a founder, and then you have to pay it annually, and you then disappear as a founder, is that would be the consequence, right? If you 1 year say you are not paying, you would disappear as a founder?
Yeah, so these are all dynamics that we're learning about here with our founders as well, because you can imagine they've now paid for 4 years in a row. And so, you know, we have to continually have conversations with our board and internally about how do we reach financial sustainability, and does it mean that we need to change our structure, and how do we help our founding companies, and how do we continue to communicate about their support moving forward. So this is something that we're dealing with as well, but currently it has been an annual fee, and all of our members and founding members have continued to support us at that level, and so we haven't been challenged by that issue. But it is something that we can certainly address if there's another fee structure that would be helpful in Europe. So, for example, if there was potentially a grant fund that we knew of that was available, and we were able to get some funding in that direction, and then we wanted to change, and it was just a first-year founding fee, then we can change that. But we will just, as a reminder, go back to that second-year budget and see that there are, you know, considerable fees to be successful and to continue to drive that value.
Rowana, here in Holland, and probably that is an EU regulation, this type of fees could be deducted because you are paying this fee to a non-profit organization.
So we have to look into it.
Mm-hmm. You mean it could be deducted from the taxes?
Yes.
It could be. It's not certain, but we have to check if we could find a legal structure where the foundation, because then it would be a foundation, is permitted to be seen as a non-profit foundation which can give permission to subject it from the taxes.
Yeah.
And not all of them are. You have to really go to a process, but I'm almost sure that that's a road we have to take, because it would be very interesting for many companies.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think that's probably worth a thought how to do that. And if it really becomes a foundation, then it's a different structure. And yeah, I think that's important. How is it in the US? Can you deduct that from your taxes?
Sure. So the way it works is because we are a 501c3 organization, which is our federal tax exempt status, it is a tax deductible donation at the end of the year. However, one of the issues with that legally is that you have to deduct the value of anything that you receive from the organization. So you have to evaluate, okay, what are the benefits that I got? So for example, if you get consulting support, then you have to evaluate the value of that, and that cannot be tax deductible. And so there,
that's fair.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult. So it's not always so frequently. If you're a very engaged member, then you're actively getting value from your membership. And so it is not as easy as a donation. A donation is 100% tax deductible. So if you made a $10,000 donation then 100% of that is tax deductible.
So we have to look into that for Europe. What are the rules there?
Yeah. Okay, well, I really appreciate this discussion, and want to just ask before I depart: is there any questions anybody can ask of me as a CEO or even as a founding member? Anything at all? I'd be happy to answer. I want to make sure to wrap up because I have to leave the call. Any questions? I do look forward to seeing you all in Bologna. I hope that all comes together well, and yeah, I'm really excited about the next steps, and I know there's lots to work out, but that's exactly why we need great innovative minds at the table so we can move this forward in the best possible way for the European market. So Caitlin, I thank you very much for hosting this, and I appreciate everybody's attendance, and I will talk with you all in the future meetings.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Caitlin, one question. Would it be possible to, and I guess there's some confidentiality to this, but to get a list of the companies interested in being a founding father or being on the committee? So,
sure, so
see,
yeah. Go ahead.
Kind of see which companies that are thinking about joining.
Can you share with me a little bit about your interest in that?
It's more to see kind of the spread in Europe and to sell it internally.
Sure. So my recommendation would be to reach out to Corinne because she has a better network there in Europe, and we have a list of 15 companies that we began with and are really focusing on for our outreach. Corinne, would you be able to meet with Nils and go over what we're working on?
Yeah, I will do that. Niels, I will send you our long list. Of course, what you are stated, there is some confidentiality in it. So my suggestion is to safeguard also a little bit the confidentiality for the companies. So my suggestion is I send you the name of the companies involved who showed interest, so that you have an indication with whom we are speaking.
Perfect. And I mean, you're of course free to share our company for the benefit of others.
And I would add that if there are peer companies that people on the call think would be interested in this today, to please reach out to them and let them know, because we try very hard to reach out to everyone who we think may be interested, but it's happened to me several times that I meet with someone and they say, I had no idea that this even existed, and had I known in the beginning, then we would have been a founding member. And there's no going back in history. So if there's someone you can think of that you think should be engaged now, we don't want to miss that opportunity.
That's a quick question. On these 15 companies which were on the list or which have shown their interest, how firm have they expressed their interest? I mean, is it just that after the presentation, which was really fascinating, the presentation Spencer gave in Warsaw, that they came up to you, Corinne, and spoke to you, or is it how firm is the interest they have shown?
I think, Rowana, we had a long list, and as you know, from a long list we have a short list. We have discussed earlier this week in our committee who is on the short list. There are really interesting companies on the short list. What I stated earlier in this meeting, some of them expressed their interest in this webinar, but they are not here, so there is a reason that they are not popping up. But they expressed really serious interest in that. And now it is on our side to approach them the coming days to see where they are standing. But their signal so far was very positive.
So I believe of our list of 15 that we began with many months ago, we are moving forward with very serious interest from 7 or 8 companies.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any additional questions that I can answer before we end the webinar today?
No, not for now.
Will you put this also online or only send it to the people who are invited?
I will send this to our, maybe to you, Corinne and Gerard, and you can decide who you'd like to send it out to, but I will send it to everyone who registered for the webinar today and everyone on our current list that we're focusing on for founding membership and committee representation. So I will send it out that way. And if there are additional people that you would be interested in sending it to, please feel free.
And I would put a mark on your website saying that this webinar has been and that they can contact you directly if they want to have access to it.
Okay.
Because there will be people going to the website and saying, yeah, I heard something, what?
You're right.
Yeah.
We do. We need a placeholder for the European expansion.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time today and learning about the expansion. And I really hope to be able to work with you more personally to get to know you and your companies and the market and how we can be effective. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye for now.